It's my era. I'm a child of the 80s. And what happened in the 80s? The same men, some of the same men and women who were the patriarch and matriarchs of our communities became pipers and sprangers, and then we had the whole HIV/AIDS epidemic. Couple that with mothers leaving to go and make a better life in North America, right? And we growing up with grannies. So we have the barrel children syndrome. These things are real external factors that led to what happening today.
So it created a sort of void.
Listen, but there were rules. There were rules, right? You don't dump where you eat and sleep, meaning you don't rob in your own community. We broke that rule. We started bringing men from outside to rob inside. And we started to go outside to rob based on invitation.
Audacious Rebel.
Welcome to the path of the Audacious Rebel, where we challenge the status quo, break boundaries, and dive deep into the forces shaping our world. I'm your host, Gurman, and today we journey all the way to the Caribbean, to Trinidad and Tobago, my homeland. We have our guest, one who embodies resilience, social transformation, and the power of the spoken word like few others. Joining me is none other than Mtima Solwazi, a multi-hyphenated management guru, a social architect and cultural ambassador who has dedicated his life to empowering youth and reshaping communities through the art of spoken word poetry. As the founder and general manager of the oral tradition Roots Foundation, he has turned poetry into a tool for activism, civic engagement, and social entrepreneurship, creating platforms for self-expression and social change. With a Master of Science in Sociology, a Bachelor of Science in Psychology with minors in Criminology and Sociology, and a certificate in social work from the University of the West Indies, Mtima has taken an academic and empirical approach to his mission. His groundbreaking thesis, How the Voice of the Poet and the Use of Spoken Word Poetry Promotes Pro-Social Behavior in Youth from At-Risk Circumstances and Opportunity Youth in Trinidad and Tobago, provides compelling evidence of how words, when wielded with intention, can shape minds and alter destinies. Beyond academia, Mtima is a true gatekeeper of the arts, using peace-building strategies to uplift vulnerable youth, those from high-risk environments, and individuals categorized in what he labeled as NEET, N-E-E-T, an acronym meaning not in education, employment, or training. Through festivals, interventions, and media outreach, Roots Foundation has become a beacon of hope and transformation, using oral traditions to breathe life into communities that the world often overlooks. Today, we're diving into his journey, his philosophy, and how spoken word poetry is not just an art form, but a revolutionary force capable of shifting social paradigms. Get ready for a powerful, thought-provoking conversation with a man who doesn't just speak change, he creates it. Let's welcome Mtima Solwazi to the path of the Audacious Rebel. Welcome, Mtima.
Thank you for such a uplifting and motivating introduction. Well, and I'm happy to be here. So thank you very much.
Well,
to you and your audience.
You did, your whole thing is about the spoken word,
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had to find the words that would be aligned with what you do.
Yes.
And it's something that you would use spoken word. I do something, I don't know if to call it spoken word or what, but this is something I do as well. And, in the book of John, chapter 1, verse 1, it states, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Of course, there's a lot of interpretation where that is concerned.
Yeah.
But when you look at the Word, you're looking at the power of creation. You're looking at the power to transform. And you hear all the time about the spoken word and speaking certain words into the life of people. So tell me, Mtiba, how did you dedicate your life to this? Why this spoken word? How did you get involved in something like this? The Oral Tradition Roots Foundation.
Well, again, hello to your audience, and thank you for having me here. Before I get in, I just want to go back to you mentioned a part in the scripture, and people really don't understand the power of words, eh? Right? And as I said, there's so many interpretations of what you just said. And if you look at I'm Muslim, and if you look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he got the revelation from God and he went to his people and he started to recite some of the early verses from the Quran, the leaders of the tribe said, hey, go and get our best poets to challenge this poetry from Muhammad, because they thought it was poetry because of the arithmetic tone of the verses of the Quran. So that should tell you the status that has been placed on poetry, on words from ever since, right? So with that said, I started to write poems, right? And love poems, and you're from Trinidad, probably around my era, and long ago, those denim paper, the sweetie paper, with
Yes.
the little one-liner
There's some quotes on
on
it.
them, right? So, since in primary school, I was always fascinated with that. We would give girls this little sweetie paper, after I suck my denim first, right? And give them that sweetie paper. As I got older, I started to be fascinated by the postcards. Um, I just can't remember this popular one
Hallmark.
that, oh, yes, boy.
No,
I gave
you're
us a lot of
speaking
man
this, and
long
I'm so
time.
in alignment with this because this was my thing too. I would go to the stores in the postcard sections, and I'm not buying any card for anybody, but I would just read the
Yes.
poems, and I used to say, "Wow,
Yeah.
these
So
people are
at
good."
times I feel the store clerks would think I'm coming to steal because I would just stand there and read. And then I said to myself, I could do this. I can do this. And I started to write from a then girlfriend who became the mother of my only child. Right? So I started to write these poems for her. So instead of now purchasing Hallmark cards, I will write poems to her. But around that time, I was also exposed to the streets.
Mm,
So writing love poems and being on the streets is a sort of oxymoron, right?
yes.
So I used to hid my writings, but I was also concerned about what's happening on the streets, right? I would see your friends dying from what we used to say the rah-rah, or the HIV AIDS, right?
Mm,
Succumbing to HIV AIDS, or dying, what we used to say natural causes, gunshots, right? You're seeing drugs on the streets, crime, and it used to bother me. And I have nothing against love. I have nothing against these emotional expressions of the heart, matters of the heart. I have nothing against that. But I didn't want to be seen as a love poet when the streets around me was dying. So I started to write, about what I'm seeing, trying to see how I can address what I'm seeing through poetry. And that took a while because I started to write my poems in a copybook. right? And this part of this story, I don't think I ever told this publicly. I had all my poems in a copybook, right? Because I always wanted to publish a book. And I met this printer, and I said to him, I said, can you publish my book of poems for me? He said, no problem. I went to his office, and I remember handing him my copybook of poems. And he just pulled that drawer on the desk, he threw it in, and he closed back the drawer. And that action had me uncomfortable because I say, he didn't self open the copybook to take a look. He just put it in a drawer.
It's kind of disrespectful.
And I left that place with a heavy heart, right? With a heavy heart that this guy just took my copybook up, which I cherished, and put it in a drawer and closed the drawer. I never saw those poems again.
Wow.
When I went back to him, he said he misplaced it. I said he misplaced it? No, that copybook had a lot of love poems, but that was also when I was starting to transition into writing about life, drugs, gangs. And he said that he misplaced it. And listen, Gurman, I went into those, I think it was Excellent City stores, and I would check those postcards to see if I seen my poems popping up in those postcards. And that really affected me. I was hurt, I was angry, and I'll be honest with you and your audience, I was already exposed to the streets, so you could imagine what was going through my mind to do that guy.
Yes.
And I said, here what's going on. Try to remember your poems and rewrite them. But I don't think I ever remembered all because I almost had a full copybook of poems, right? And what I remembered, I wrote them back out and I kept that to myself. I never told anyone. Again, I've been writing poems. So this was since I started in 1988, writing poems. And I kept that to myself. And in 2001, thereabouts, no, could have been, so in 1988, could have been 1995 or 96. I started to work with a printer now. I became Muslim and I started to work in a printer. And the owner asked me, can you write? And I found that was a kind of insulting question. I finished secondary school. He said, I could write. I said, yeah, I could write. He said, write an article on casino gambling. No, I don't think I could write an article, but I wrote a poem on casino gambling. And he gave me $50 for that poem. And he published it in the magazine. And I was like, what? My poem cost $50? I felt so happy going through that first experience.
Right.
Then to have this experience. And I said to him, I have more poems, And whilst working there, I started to type out my poems now. Right, because I could type. I typed out all my poems. And whilst at that printer, I published my first book of poems in 2001. Reflection, a compilation of poems by Mtima Solwazi. There are 3 sections. One on reflections of the creator.
Right.
The other one on reflections on the heart. So that is my love poems. And the last section is reflections on life, talking about drugs, gangs, gambling, the role of fathers, the role of mothers, And from there, audience, I just took off because I realized now, hey, I have a craft, I could use it. I was a member of the Islamic Resource Society. We had a group called IRS, Poets and Drummers. So I would perform poetry at many events. And in 2005, 1985, at our usual emancipation lecture, I would perform, and minister, the then minister in the Ministry of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines, is now our current Minister of National Security. But back then, he was the minister in the ministry, and he was the keynote speaker. And when I said my poem, along with a deceased brother called Ahmad Baliwa, when we said our poems, and Fitzgerald Hines went to the lectern to present his keynote speech, he kept referencing my poem. And I'm saying, but wait now. If you don't want to listen to this long, boring speech, you could just listen to my poem or read my poem.
Right.
And that was the birth of Roots, Reflections of Our Oral Traditions, which started as a newsletter, a bi-monthly newsletter, and an annual magazine. Because those skills I got from the print tree, I was a desktop publisher at that print tree, and we would produce a monthly magazine. So I started my own bi-monthly newsletter and annual magazine. And in 2009, we registered as an organization, and we are here today.
Right. So
That's a beautiful interlude I gave you there.
that's really a beautiful story. Sorry you went through what you went through there when you lost all that work, and there's no way you could reproduce it. A lot of this work would have been inspired. Sometimes you get
Yes,
an
and
inspired
there
word
were a
today,
lot of
and
there were a lot of poems I just couldn't remember.
yeah,
Because as I said, these things are inspired, so you would get this. Many times I would have a book by my bed with a pen, and I'll be sleeping and just think about something, get up and write it one time.
yep,
No?
yep, yep.
If I song weird, I used to have a book and a pen in the bathroom.
I know
Sometimes
that.
I
I
bathe
know.
in. I just
Listen,
had to run outside, dry my skin just to the right. Sometimes the page getting wet.
listen. Everywhere I go, but now we have phones, and I can actually make notes on my phone.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I would always have a piece of paper and a pen on me, because you
Yes.
never know when some thought is just gonna land, some inspired word,
Yep.
and you're not gonna remember it. So you need to write it
No.
down. And so I know
Yes.
exactly what you're speaking. But that book you published though, Reflections, is it available today?
We have to. We just made. We did a one print. Excuse. We did a one print of 1,000 copies, all sold out. But I have enough material to republish or to publish another book. But long and short, it's not available physically. Well, we have online now. I should explore
The
doing
ebook.
a ebook.
Yeah, I
Yes,
would
so
definitely
we'll
like
have
to
it.
get a copy, but I wouldn't want a hard copy. I like to hold my books in my hand. I'm
Yeah.
still,
Okay. Okay.
but tell me something. I understand how the birth of the poetry and all that would have started, but how did you decide to use it as a vehicle for activism and transformation? What is it about spoken word that makes it such a powerful tool for engaging youth,
So
especially
when
those
I
from?
look at my life, so yeah, so when I look at my life and what I went through and how these words gave me a sort of comfort, you could say, or reassurance that okay, everything, although at, in front of you it's bad, it's not all that bad. There's hope, and I found that words helped me to face my challenges. Now, I used to say a long time, I may not be able to tell you how I feel because emotions are sometimes you want to express yourself and you may say the wrong thing in the wrong way. But don't make me write it. Eh? Once I write that, it's a whole different story. So I
Mm,
realize the pen is really and truly mightier than the gun, right?
yes.
And because of that, now I wanted to find a way to challenge young people those who, especially those who have, or those who are placed in disadvantageous situations, they may have literacy problems, they may have anger issues, they may feel alone, whatever it is. But I just want to say this for your audience. My main, I don't exclude young people on a whole, but my main target is youth involved in gang activities or those on the fringe of being involved in gang activities, because I once trotted that path and I know with the help of God, words got me out of it. Right?
Okay.
So I saw the purpose of it, I saw the strength in it, I saw it can be used as a tool. Let me tell you this. I went Belmont Boys Secondary School, which was formerly intermediate. I think it's now called St. Francis Boys College. Right? Felix Edinburgh was one of my teachers at the time. He was also the vice principal. That same copybook, before I took it to the printer, I went to Sir. I said, Sir, let's write poems. He looked at it. He said, don't stop writing. That was his advice. Don't stop writing. And if someone like me, with my challenges in the past, could use that skill, because it's a skill,
It is.
to take me from one point to the next, why not this youth man? Why not this young girl? Why not you? Why not she? Why not him? Why not her? It can. Why not them? So when I registered my roots from, and let me tell you something. I saw a quote in him here. I saw Marshall Montano put a quote up on Facebook that focus on the affirmative, not the alternative. Plan B will be the alternative.
Right.
Right? And always believe it can happen. That's my mantra. Is make it happen. When I got that epiphany from the emancipation lecture with Fitzgerald Hines as the speaker, I went forward to become, because there were some other groups, I wouldn't call their names, poetry, different type of groups, dealing with literature and oral traditions. I went to them to join. I was rejected. I was rejected. One group told me, what you're doing is not poetry. Don't call it poetry. So I said, what? And I started Roots. I started my own organization so that other young people who feel in the same way have a place.
Right.
But you know like how gangs are formed? I know you are a former law enforcement officer. That's how gangs are formed, you know. When they are pushed out of mainstream, right, they come together and they form their own little comfort zone, which then becomes a gang. Some of them, go to be very violent. So, Roots Foundation was my gang as a alternative to the gangs on the block, and it is still my gang for alternative to the gangs on the block, because I bring these young people who are scarred in so many different ways, emotionally, physically, whatever issues they're facing. You have this space here.
Your Master Science thesis focuses on how spoken word poetry promotes pro-social behavior in youth.
Right.
What key findings did you uncover in your researching for your master's on this thesis?
So what I actually did, and I don't know if I could pull it up here. What I actually did, right? I looked at, because the thing about spoken word poetry, most of us would have been exposed to that, or my generation, through Def Jam poetry, right? But when you look at the construct of spoken word poetry, it dates, it predates Def Jam poetry. A matter of fact, when I was doing my thesis, I traveled to Canada to a conference called the South North Griot Summit. And at that conference, a Professor Lillian Allen, Professor Lillian Allen, was presenting a paper on the history of spoken word poetry. And she mentioned Lancelot Lane as the father of spoken word poetry,
Wow.
and Cheryl Byron as the mother of spoken word poetry. And I sat in that audience and I ran outside. Eddie, the original one, saw me say, Mtima, what happened? I said, this is madness. I said, I left Trinidad and Tobago to come Canada to learn about the history of spoken word poetry and just got sent back to Trinidad. Because we know Lancelot Lane and Cheryl Byron as the father and mother of Rhapsody. But when you also look at the construct of Rhapsody, I spoken with poetry, boss.
Right.
So, to do justice to this thesis, I had to start there. I had to start with the father and mother and show how this thing developed and how it has been used. Spoken word poetry, well, that's some of the key findings that I found. Spoken word poetry have been used a lot in the US and Canada in schools, in juvenile detention centers, to give young people a sense of who am I, right? It's a powerful tool to, it's sending me to look for this thing, but it's a powerful tool to help them, if you want to say, self-actualize, right? The thing about spoken word poetry, it gives the poet that power to share their emotions, to share their lived experiences and social realities with an audience, who in turn, the audience now is like a barter. The audience now could relate to that poem in so many different ways, right? Because if I'm in this discussion here, if I just jump out and say, boy, I was abused as a child, it's like, where that come from? You know, how that just end up in our discussion. But if I do a poem on that, you, the listener, would be able to relate to that poem in real ways, either as one, a victim, or might be a perpetrator of that crime. And that is how powerful this thing called spoken word poetry is.
You know, in your experience working with youth in criminogenic communities, what are the most common factors you think that pushes these youth toward crime?
No. And I'll come back to some quotes from that thesis. Listen, I have been giving this thing a study, and I'm not sure of your age. We probably around the same demographics, right? Because I was born in the 70s, right? Some are child of the 80s. Listen to this carefully, and viewers, listeners, listen to this carefully. Today, we have a serious problem with violence within our communities, right? Within our communities. And I will start with most recent. There was just a outburst of violence recently here within the Silas community. And that affected me a lot because why? Young brother from Silas a Trinidad artist, showed the world how versatile words are, right? From moving from zest to soca to calypso to end up in the finals on two major platforms, right? The Marsh Granite, with this Calypso We Rise, and the rebranding of the Soca Monarch, right? Where he came second, right? In the Calypso Monarch, he came third, right? Look at that achievement, right? And the whole of Trinidad and the diaspora was singing praises on Young Brother and Silots. And the day after Ash Wednesday, upheaval of violence within the community, right? One, we don't know how to celebrate as I'm being real here, as Black people, we don't know how to celebrate collectively Black excellence. Right? I'm not saying the fights in Silots was related to Young Brother, but people singing praises on your community, you should be still on a high.
Right.
But you're fighting. So let's go back now. I was born 1972. I was 53 years old this year. Right? I think. After you cross 45 years, get mixed up. Right? Now, in the 60s, before my time, but I sit around elders and I listen, I pay attention. In the 60s, there was a movement of consciousness that went straight to the mid-70s. A movement of consciousness amongst us in the diaspora here, right? And not just Africans, because the Black Power movement involved a lot of Indians also, right? So there was a movement of consciousness, Garveyism, right? That whole Malcolm X era that would have flown into the 60s.
Black Power.
Right? From the 50s, 40s, into the, right? The pan movement that was born out in the 30s, 40s, the steel band movement. So you had this consciousness, right? Rastafari, Islam, right? Pan-Africanism. I had the privilege of interviewing the former ambassador to Guyana, who was stationed in DC, and he was saying in the 70s or the 60s, thereabouts, he went to England on a scholarship. He said he was facing racism. Because in the 70s, he was facing racism. But it did not affect him because why? And this is what he said, listeners and viewers. They could have never beaten cricket. That is what that man said. So, not just a consciousness, an awareness of self, because cricket back then wasn't just taking a bat and hitting a ball. Cricket was a statement for the Caribbean. So there was something that young people, taking a quote from David Rudder, rally around, rally behind the West Indies. There was something that young people gravitated to, consciousness, that cricket, that academia. People used to challenge each other and fight with each other to be the brightest. But then something happened in the 80s. That is my era. I'm a child of the 80s. And what happened in the 80s? The same men, some of the same men and women who were the patriarch and matriarchs of our communities became pipers and sprangers. And then we had the whole HIV/AIDS epidemic. Couple that with mothers leaving to go and make a better life in North America, right? And we growing up with grannies. So we have the barrel children syndrome. These things are real external factors that led to what's happening today.
So it created a sort of void.
Listen, the same man that my mother said, boy, he was this, he was that. I sell him drugs, I know him as a piper. So I could not have that respect for him as my parents would have in their era because I know he as a piper. I know she as a spranger. So guess what? My generation now, the children of the 80s, we broke all the rules. Because I'm going to tell you something, we were angry. Because that same man that I'm selling drugs to, that same woman that I'm selling drugs to is somebody's mother, is somebody's father. So our mothers and fathers became sprangers and pipers, drug addicts. So you shame. Young brother said the piper he used to stone as a little boy with his friends, he found that that was his father.
Mm-hmm.
So your mother and father on the streets as drug addicts. You're angry. Your mother migrate. As far as you're concerned, mommy abandoned me. So all the brand she's sending for you, sneakers, jerseys, will just go to waste because that is not that has no value to you. So we grew up angry and we broke all the rules because there were rules. There were rules, right? You don't dump where you eat and sleep, meaning you don't rob in your own community. We broke that rule. We started bringing men from outside to rob inside. And we started to go outside to rob based on invitation, right? We started to be real disrespectful on the block because we control the block. We start, if somebody from your community and violate somebody in my community, the rule was I go to you, the leader, and you deal with that. We break that rule. We just go into your community and just deal with that person. And now your team telling you, what kind of disrespect is that? But you have to deal with them fellas. So the generation now, guess what they met? They met a broken rule, which is no rules.
Right.
So back in the 60s, when it was consciousness, now we fully dance for the evil. And that is the problem we face in here.
So how does this spoken word, how does this help the youth to redefine themselves beyond the labels of criminal or troubled? And have you witnessed specific success stories
Yeah,
where spoken word has changed the trajectory of any young person? Can you share examples of that?
of course, one of our team members, Isaiah John, his story is that now his mom died. I think he could have been informed too as a young boy. His mom died. And the loss of any parent is traumatic to a child. And in Trinidad context, we like to cuss about your mother. Yeah, your mother so and so, your mother this, your mother that. But a young boy even went further. He said, it could your mother dead.
Wow.
And Isaiah offload a barrage of blows on that young man. But because of the circumstances, his punishment was not that severe, Isaiah. Here what his punishment was. He was punished to go to the poetry class in his school. And he was placed into a space where he was able to write. Isaiah is one of our team members today. He's in charge of our community intervention programs. He is one of the best we have. Spoken word poetry saved his life in a real tangible way. Think about that.
So you're saying, from a sociological perspective, what changes you think may be needed in education, policy, or community structures in order to make youth empowerment through the
So,
arts a more integral part of crime prevention?
so Roots Foundation at present, we have a building in Tunapuna, the old post office in Tunapuna, and we are in the process of opening our own school called Roots Cafe TT, Creative Academy for Edutainment. At that facility, we're going to offer photography, television and video production, youth development work, spoken word poetry, business administration courses, all certified by the National Training Agency, so it's CVQ, right? One will be TTNVQ, that is the television and video production. CVQ is Caribbean Vocational Qualifications, and the TTNVQ is Trinidad and Tobago National Vocational Qualifications. We're going to revolutionize how we present learning, because taking a quote from Isaiah, children love school, you know. Oh, sorry, children love learning. They hate school. So we have to make them now love school. You could already love learning. They love to learn, right? Anything they would learn. But the environment, we're going to create that environment where we're going to allow them to express themselves, allow them to use this, you hear me saying it over and over, use their lived experiences and social realities, right, to share their story, to speak their truth, right, as to who they are, what they want for themselves, for their communities, right? So it can be done, right? It just takes that willpower to move away from that traditional concept we have of learning. I don't think COVID-19 taught us anything, because we're going back fully physical when we should be exploring blending,
Yes.
right?
You know, this issue we're looking at when it comes to crime and youth violence and stuff. This is not just a Caribbean thing. This is something you see happening all over the world, from inner cities in the US to marginalized communities globally. Do you see spoken word as a scalable solution for crime prevention beyond the Caribbean?
So spoken word globally is really big. We have been to festivals in Brazil, right? We spent about 3 or 4 days in Brazil. It's one of the largest festivals of words I have encountered, right? Outside of that, in the US, you have Brave New Voices. The largest spoken word festival is a 3 to 4 day festival also. You have an organization called Urban Word. You have Louder Than a Bomb. All these are in the US. In Canada, you have the Northern Growth Network. You have events called Brothers, When Brothers Speaks, When Sisters Speak, Capital Slam. So these are movements that are using spoken word poetry to create community. So
Right.
that was one of the things also. Spoken word poetry creates community. We have had poets stay home by us here in Trinidad from the US based on an email. Hi, I'm so and so. I would like to come to Trinidad. Right? Once you use, I'm not using this for predators to take this handle, but once you're a poet, but you have to verify still too. You have to do your fact checking, and verify that person information. But spoken word creates a community, right? Once you are a poet, you are accepted within the global community. And when you go to spoken word festivals, it's not just about performing on a stage, speaking the truth or spitting, they call it. You have workshops that address self, workshop that looks at healing, right? So, because we know as practitioners, we know as organizers, the person who writing that poem, or who coming to say that poem, have some issues they're dealing with, It's like these helping professions, psychologists and sociologists and social workers, they're addressing their own personal traumas by helping others,
Yeah.
Yeah. So a poet is like a helping profession, right? So you will have to be full-hearted, like Brave New Voices, 5 to 700 young people. You will have to be foolhardy to have 700 young people in one space and not try to affect change on them, right? You have them there for 4 days. You have to work them. You
But
have
you
so many
believe you
different
believe
workshops where they're involved
you,
in.
you believe that governments and institutions are doing enough to recognize and support this approach?
For the arts on the whole, we don't see the arts as a profession. And some of us as practitioners, we treat our art as a hustle. It is not a hustle, right? I will call his name because I want to show how foolish this statement is. You know Lingo, the blind extempo artist in Trinidad,
Yes.
right? Won the competition many times. Lingo is a big one. And somebody reach out to Lingo. They want him to perform at an event for free. You will get exposure. I said, Lingo, you still want exposure? Lingo still need exposure. But a friend of mine said, when they come to us with that statement, we must tell them the only reason you found me because I was exposed.
Correct.
So we can't treat the art as a hustle, right? And until this is not a Trinidad issue, this is a global issue. You speak to any artist, they will tell you we are treated badly. They don't want to pay because they feel I could do that. Well, then if you could have done this, do it, right? They want to call you today to give you a theme poem to write for tomorrow. Come now, man. If that is the case, use Chat GPT. Don't call me,
Right.
right? And you say your own poem. Because when I charge you for that now, you say, so much? Why so much? Whenever a poet, whenever a artist, so I'm speaking about the artist now, visual artist, right? Whenever artist, right, present or create, that is them they putting out on either paper, on film, in photos, in design, in clothing. That is part of that individual. You have to pay for that. You have to respect that. So yes, there's a bigger picture in terms of how governments and the private sector and businesses treat the artists, but at our local level, the poet, the artist, we creating community. And through our community, we will effect change, right? Any youth coming around Roots Foundation, and we are not a fly-by-night organization, by the way. Fully registered, our audited accounts, we are established, right? So we have rules and guidelines. Because once you're representing this, right, is not no haphazard
Yes.
fly-by-night approach, right?
Very structured.
So all that is part of creating community. My young people, we travel every year. I ensure that they travel every year and they meet other youth, they meet other communities. Because it's one community just separated by jurisdictions,
Right.
right? But the spoken word community is really one community.
You know, given your years of experience, if you could design the ideal intervention program for high risk youth, what would it look like?
It has already been designed. Listen to me, you're pushing my limit here, boy. Listen to me. It is called, as I said, Roots Cafe TT. And let me just let me just share something with you and your audience here. and I'm talking with business here earlier, I'm putting this out, right? Our programming, let me just give you how our programming will be designed. So we have a school. We are starting our school from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? That's the first thing. There is no need to have everybody trying to reach in school for 8:30. That is why we have traffic jam on the first place, or for 8, right? So from 9 to 2. Secondly, on a Monday, our students will be online. They will not come into school. They'll be online, right? Either at home if they have the resources or at a public library. And with that said, one of the main requirements to join our school, you must have a valid library card. NALIS, our National Library in Trinidad and Tobago, the chairman has a saying, when reading stops, violence begins, right? Also, that Monday will be dedicated to teachers' mental well-being. So teachers will come in between 9 and 11, and we'll do yoga, wellness sessions, motivational talks. We're going to rejuvenate our teachers for that week. The children will be online from 9 to 11. And during the week, we will have different programs, be it youth development, be it animation, graphic design. You want to expose them to these 21st century skills. On a Friday, in the first term on a Friday, they will be on field trips. They will go out. In the second term on a Friday, they will have experiential learning. All what they have been doing throughout the terms, put into practice now within that second term every Friday. And the third term, we'll have industry experts coming in to speak with them. Our school will be run on continuous assessment. Listen, I work at Serval for 15 years, and a trainee will be functioning optimal, no good grades, whatever. And that last term for exam, some of them will drop out. And I was like, why? Our children have been so conditioned to failure that they fear they may fail, even though they had the tools to pass, It's like, nah. And listen, for me, since in primary school, I good in class. As soon as Miss say, okay, put away books, test. Miss, I want to use the toilet, please. I wanted number 1 and number 2. And if you look too sharp, I mean number 3. Both come at the same time. You understand? And that is just exam anxiety, because how we have been set up to receive exams. Exams is punishment. Exams has not been used to take an individual from one level to the next. Or they can't stop talking. Spot. What is a spot exam? What is a spot test? What is testing a child on something that they have not learned as yet? That is how so once exam is seen as that, why I must 1-to-1 fail again?
Right.
So we will have continuous assessment. Let me give an example. On this podcast here, let's say this is on the second term the Friday. So I am a student. I am being interviewed. So I am presenting here now my public speaking skills, because you have learned public speaking, right? You are also a student, but you are hosting the podcast. So you will be also using your public speaking skills, but be also teaching you to host podcasts. So this is your time now to show what you have learned. Somebody streaming it. There's another student. Somebody taking photos. There's another student. Somebody filming it. That's another student. And guess what? They having fun running a podcast, but they're being graded. Right? Because they're doing what they like, they're doing what they've been taught. Right? So it's continue. And we'll run it on a private YouTube channel. So the students, because upstairs we're going to have a studio, so the students downstairs will be calling in, and we're going to train them how to call in on a interview. We don't want to hear, "Oh my dog, what is he saying by big up?" It has stations for that, right? You call in and you present yourself properly. You state who you are, where you're from. You make a comment. You ask a question.
Now, you're outlining your school and what you're structuring for your school, but don't you think that the entire school curriculum throughout, not just the Caribbean, but probably all over the world, need to be restructured from the old paradigm and the way things are done to
Yeah,
something new, to have a more engaging program, not just in terms of the arts, but, and this is a discussion I was having yesterday, in terms of morals and implementing values and
hello.
ethics.
Yes. Now, mind you, if you since we started to explore this format of a school, I came across a lot of private schools using similar methodologies. So it has been done, but privately. I'm not sure how many schools run by states, right, are willing to go this direction. But it is worth exploring. Serval, I mentioned Serval. I attended Serval as a trainee. I also worked Serval 15 years. And the same students from the secondary schools who have been deemed as failures attend Serval and are successful because the first 3 months of your exposure to learning in Serval is participating in a human development program. It's called the ADP, Adolescent Development Program. It's an attitudinal development program that deals with the holistic human development of the individual. They use the SPICES curriculum of
Right.
spirituality, physical, intellectual, creative, emotional, and social. All the programming in Serval follows that SPICES curriculum. At Roots Cafe Titi, we have created our own model called Stream. Yes, there's a stream, but we're not streaming that way. We are streaming this way. Storytelling, training, reading, entrepreneurship, arts, and mentorship. We cannot create successful individuals without mentorship.
I agree.
And we're going to have a
To that,
robust mentorship program within our model.
for someone who may be listening now, whether they are a policymaker, or an educator, or just someone who wants to make a difference, what's the one thing you would urge them to do to help drive real change in crime prevention through the arts?
Oh, God. Mr. Man, I just get on bad. Listen, we need to stop talk. We need to stop talk. I am not speaking for Roots Foundation only. Right? You who are viewing and listening, find an NGO, find an NPO, find some organization that is doing the work, and put your money. Let's be real. Put your money. If you don't have money to put, okay, put your networks forward. This interview I'm doing here is based on a referral. Somebody told him, hey, this guy, XYZ, and I'm here today. You need to do that also. And if you can't do that, well, let me reverse it. Sorry. Put your money, get down on the ground. If you don't have your money, you can put your resources, your physical resources, get involved with the NGO. We always need support in terms of technical skills. You may have some technical skills, put that there. If you don't have that, put your networks. So,
Yes.
those who listen out there, how can you assist any NGO, any non-profit organization? Money, technical skills, and networking. You choose which one.
It's something, we have this issue, this crime issue all over the world. And everyone just sits back and waits for the government, what the government is doing, new laws, new policies. Everybody's waiting for somebody else to do something when we all can do something one way or the other. Of course, you identify money, and money seem to be one of the
No,
first thing you outline, but just your time, some
yes,
sort of contribution.
yes.
How are you assisting? Are you contributing to development, or are you just allowing things to devolve? But something must be done. There must be some role we play in making that difference. Ntima, your journey, your work, and your passion for using spoken word poetry as a tool for transformation is nothing short of inspiring. Before we wrap up, I want to give you the floor. What final words would you like to leave with our listeners? If there's one message they should take away from this conversation, what would it be?
You have probably heard this so many times, but give the youth the opportunity. That is all they need, an opportunity. Listen, you will be so surprised if you just give that youth the opportunity, what can become of that individual. Just give them that chance, give them that opportunity. You know, take a chance in them. So, yeah, take a chance in youth.
I
Nice
love it.
slogan. Take a chance in youth.
As simple as it may sound, very powerful words, brother. Now, for those who want to follow your work and support the Oral Tradition Roots Foundation or get involved in any way, where can they find you?
Well, you can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. Just Google Roots Foundation TT, ROOTS, Roots Foundation, FOUNDATION, TT, and you will find us. And from there, you could get us. You'll get our email. You'll get numbers to call also. So you could get us on Facebook, Instagram. You could check our YouTube channel. Every program we have done, there's a video as evidence of what we did. You have testimonials. Check out our website, Roots Foundation TT, right? And yeah, feel free to
Well,
reach out. As I said, advice, technical support, get involved. Someone called me yesterday, Mtima, I want to get involved with Roots Foundation. I have these skills. I said, no problem. Let's organize. They're willing to dedicate 4 hours a day to our work.
that is a lot.
That is amazing.
It's a lot. Well, I would also include those links below in the description of this video, so those who follow in can click there and they will be able to
Yes.
connect with you. To all our listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, if you found value in the wisdom shared today, do me a favor. Like, share, and subscribe to the Path of the Audacious Rebel. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. How do you see spoken word and the arts playing a role in crime prevention and social change? Let us know. What kind of intervention you think is necessary to make a difference? Let us know. And let's keep the conversation going. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We are here to challenge perspective, spark transformation, and walk the path of the audacious rebel together. Until next time, stay conscious and above all, stay audacious. Audacious Rebel.